The great starship Ardent Star moved quietly through the endless dark of space. It was a long-range transport ship, carrying hundreds of travelers from many different alien races. Inside its metal halls, voices echoed in many tones and languages. But tonight, there was fear. The reason was not the dark void outside. It was someone inside the ship. A human. The only one of his kind aboard. They called him the Deathworlder. Everyone had heard stories about the planet called Earth, a place where everything tried to kill you. Storms, beasts, even the air and water. They said humans evolved on a world of danger and learned to survive when others would have died. Some said they were monsters in disguise. Others said they were unkillable. Now, one of them was sitting quietly among them, on a passenger ship not made for such a creature. He said nothing, barely moved, and kept his hood low over his face. His seat was near the observation window, where the stars stretched like rivers of fire. The other passengers avoided him. Even the bravest species, like the scaled warriors of the Cthal, kept their distance. One whispered, "He doesn't even blink. Look at him. Like he's waiting for something." Another replied, "He listens. All the time. Deathworlders hear everything." They laughed nervously, but their voices shook. The human, however, did not react. He only turned his gaze slightly, as if sensing their fear. His eyes were calm, cold, and ancient. Then, without warning, the lights flickered. The engines made a deep growling sound that vibrated through the floor. Conversations stopped. The ship's AI voice spoke, "Attention passengers. Minor reactor fluctuation detected. Please remain calm." But no one was calm. Some turned their eyes toward the human again. The Cthal guard muttered, "It started when he came aboard." The human stood slowly, stretching his shoulders, his movements smooth and quiet. "Sit down," the guard shouted, holding a weapon. The human's voice was calm, deep, and quiet. "If you wish to live," he said, "you should check the lower cargo deck." The captain's voice came through the speaker, "All crew to engineering. We have an unstable energy reading." The guard hesitated. The human sat again, folding his hands. Minutes later, a small explosion shook the ship. The floor trembled. Sparks fell from the ceiling. Screams filled the hall. The emergency lights turned red. The captain's voice returned, tighter now. "We've lost one of the cargo stabilizers. Stay in your sections." Panic began to spread. Some passengers tried to run. Others yelled at the human, calling him cursed, evil, a bringer of doom. He did not answer. He only looked out the window at the dark void beyond. Slowly, the chaos died down as the crew repaired the damage. When the lights came back on, the captain herself entered the deck. She was a tall, silver-skinned alien with a firm voice. "No one is to leave their seats," she ordered. Then her eyes stopped on the human. "You," she said. "You said to check the cargo deck. How did you know?" The human looked at her for a long moment before answering. "I could hear it." The pulse of the reactor changed. The captain frowned. "You heard that?" He nodded once. "Your ship hums wrong when it's dying." She did not know what to say. Around them, the other passengers stared, uneasy and afraid. She finally said, "I don't believe in Deathworld legends, but you are different." The human did not reply. He simply said, "You should check your outer sensors." "Why?" the captain asked. The human's eyes drifted toward the window. "Because something is following us." The captain froze. "That's impossible. We're in empty space." The human tilted his head slightly. "Nothing is ever empty." She frowned, but activated her wrist communicator. "Bridge, scan our rear vector." There was silence. Then the comm officer's voice came, trembling. "Captain, I'm seeing something. Large. Moving fast." The deck went silent. The human stood up again, slowly, and walked closer to the window. It's been tracking your heat trail for hours, he said quietly. I felt it watching. The captain whispered. What is it? The human's reflection in the glass smiled faintly. Something old. Something hungry. The ship trembled again, and the lights flickered a second time. The alarms started to blare. Unidentified object approaching, shouted the comm. The captain's voice rose. Evasive maneuvers, now. The passengers screamed. Through the window, a shadow moved, massive, dark, and alive. It slid between the stars like smoke made solid. The ship's lights turned red again. The human pressed a hand to the glass, eyes unblinking. It's found you, he said. The captain turned to him, fear and confusion mixing in her voice. What are you? He looked at her, expression unreadable. A survivor. The ship shook violently as the shadow closed in. The lights died, leaving only the stars outside, and the faint glow of the human's eyes reflecting in the dark. The ship Ardent Star drifted through darkness, half its systems still unstable from the earlier explosion. The passengers were quiet now, afraid to speak, afraid even to breathe too loudly. Somewhere in the endless black behind them, something was moving. The scanners could not name it. The computer called it unknown energy mass, but every living thing aboard could feel it, like eyes pressing against the back of their necks. Captain Rain stood on the bridge, her voice steady though her hands trembled. Report. The comm officer replied, No communication signals detected, Captain. It's silent. The navigator added, But it's still there. It's matching our speed. Rain's gaze turned to the dark observation window. Can we see it? Only shadows, the officer whispered. Like smoke that moves. Rain didn't want to admit it, but she was afraid. The last time she had seen something that big and silent, it had been a dying moon. Behind her, the door opened with a soft hiss. Everyone turned. The human, the Deathworlder, stepped inside. His steps were slow, deliberate, silent even on the metal floor. You shouldn't be here, Rain said quickly. Passengers are to remain in quarters. The human ignored her. It's not smoke, he said quietly. It's alive. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. You think it's a creature? Asked the navigator. The human nodded. It moves like one. It hunts like one. Rain frowned. That's impossible. Nothing can survive in deep space. The human's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. You tell yourself that because it helps you sleep. The captain stepped forward. Then what is it? He looked out the window, eyes focused on something only he could see. We called them star eaters, he said. Energy feeders. My world had stories, machines and beasts that learned to live on the breath of stars. Fairy tales, someone muttered, but his voice broke halfway through the words. No, the human said. Predators don't die. They adapt. The lights flickered again, then dimmed. The computer voice broke the silence. Warning, external power drain detected. Everyone froze. It's feeding, the human whispered. Alarms began to scream through the bridge. Shields dropping. Hull temperature rising, shouted the engineer. Rain barked orders, redirect auxiliary power. Seal decks 4 through 6. But even as she shouted, the systems were failing. The energy was being sucked away like air through a crack. The ship groaned, metal bending under pressure. How do we fight it? She demanded. You don't, the human said simply. You run. We can't outrun it, cried the navigator. Then you hide, the human said, eyes still fixed on the window. He turned to Rain. But to do that, you need power. And you're losing it. The captain hesitated, torn between fear and logic. Fine, she said. You said you understand this. What do you suggest? Take me to engineering, he said. I'll stabilize your core. You're not crew, she said. You're a passenger. I'm your only chance. His tone was calm, but final. After a long pause, Rain nodded. "Escort him," she ordered. 2 guards followed him down the corridor, their weapons ready. The lights flickered as they walked, throwing long shadows on the walls. "You really think you can fix this?" one guard asked. The human didn't answer. He placed a hand on the wall, feeling the vibration through the metal. "The ship is afraid," he said quietly. "It's bleeding energy faster than it should. That means the feeder is close, touching the hull." The guards glanced at each other nervously. When they reached engineering, the human moved fast, his hands sure and steady. He opened access panels, rerouted power manually, ignoring the heat that burned his skin. Sparks flew, and the guards flinched, but he didn't even blink. "You should not be able to do that without tools," one whispered. "On my world," he replied, "tools break faster than hands." A deep sound rumbled through the ship, a hollow, wet groaning like metal being chewed. The lights turned blood red. "It's on us!" shouted the engineer. Through the external cameras, they saw it for the first time, a shape darker than space itself, enormous and shifting, covered in tendrils of living shadow. It latched onto the hull like a parasite, glowing veins pulsing along its body as it fed on the ship's core. "It's eating the reactor," someone screamed. The human didn't stop working. "We can't fight it," he said. "But we can make it choke." He ripped out a glowing conduit and jammed it into another port. The lights blazed white for a second, then stabilized. "I rerouted its feed," he said. "Now it's swallowing poison instead of energy." The ship shook violently, the creature thrashing against the hull. "What did you do?" Rain's voice shouted through the comm. "Bought you time," the human replied. "But it will learn. It always learns." Then the entire ship jolted sideways, throwing everyone to the floor. The human grabbed a railing and looked at the nearest screen. The creature had released its grip, floating back into the void, its body writhing in pain. The energy readings dropped to 0. It was gone, or so they hoped. Rain appeared on the screen, sweat on her forehead. "It's retreating," she said. "You did it." The human looked up slowly. "No," he said. "It's not running. It's thinking." Silence filled the room. Then the scanners beeped softly. "Captain," said the comm officer, voice shaking. "The object, it's circling us." Rain stared at the screen. "Why?" she whispered. The human's eyes darkened. "Because it knows I'm here." The bridge fell silent again. Only the hum of damaged systems and the slow beat of the reactor filled the air. The human turned toward the captain's image. "You asked what I am," he said quietly. "Now you'll see why your people call mine Deathworlders." Outside, in the endless dark, the shadow grew larger, stretching, splitting, forming a shape like wings. The stars dimmed. The ardent star trembled as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The void around the ardent star had grown darker, thicker, as if the stars themselves were being swallowed. Every sensor aboard screamed in confusion, showing impossible readings. The energy-draining creature, the thing the human called a star-eater, was no longer hiding. It drifted beside the ship like a living shadow, larger than any vessel built by intelligent hands. Its surface glowed with dim red veins, pulsing slowly, like the heartbeat of a god. On the bridge, Captain Rain stared in silence. Her crew waited for her orders, but she could only whisper, "It's beautiful." The human stood beside her, his expression calm, almost sorrowful. "Don't let the beauty fool you," he said softly. "It's hunger made flesh." The crew turned toward him, fear in their eyes. "You said you've seen one before," the captain said. "Where?" He did not answer right away. His gaze stayed on the creature, its massive form drifting through the void. Finally he said, "On my world, we thought it was a myth. The elders said one fell into our orbit long ago, drawn by the heat of our sun. It fed for months. When it left, it took half the sky with it." The bridge went quiet. "Half the sky," someone echoed. The human nodded. "It drained the magnetic field. Killed millions. We thought we were alone in that terror." He looked out at the moving shadow. Now I know we weren't. The captain turned toward her crew. Weapons online, she ordered, but the gunnery officer's voice shook. Captain, I can't get a lock. It's distorting our targeting systems. Fire manually, she said. The ship's turrets glowed, and beams of plasma shot into the dark. The light vanished before reaching the creature, as if it were swallowed whole. It's absorbing it, the officer cried. Every shot feeds it. Cease fire, the captain ordered. Now. The ship fell into silence again, the hum of the engines struggling under the drain. If it keeps feeding, said the human, it will crush this ship like a shell. Rain turned sharply. Then tell me how to stop it. He studied the flickering lights, then spoke slowly. You can't stop it. But you can distract it. It feeds on energy, it doesn't understand silence. Silence? She asked. Shut everything down, he said. Reactor, shields, lights. Make it think you're dead. That's suicide, said her second officer. We'll freeze in minutes. Better frozen than eaten, the human replied coldly. Rain stared at him. Then she said, do it. One by one, the systems went dark. Lights faded. Engines stilled. The ship became a drifting corpse among the stars. The only glow came from the faint red veins outside, crawling along the Star-Eater's skin. Minutes passed. No one dared to move. Even the hum of the ventilation was gone. The creature floated closer, its surface brushing against the hull with a low, moaning sound that vibrated through every deck. The crew trembled, afraid to breathe. Then, silence. The human closed his eyes, listening. It's moving away, he whispered. It believes we're dead. Slowly, he opened his eyes. But it'll come back. It always does. The captain exhaled shakily. If it returns, we won't survive another drain. Then we don't wait, he said. We hunt it first. Hunt, she repeated, disbelief in her tone. You want to hunt that? He looked at her, and in that moment, she saw something old in his gaze, a kind of patience that came only from generations of survival. Predators don't expect prey to fight back, he said. That's how you kill them. She hesitated. What do you need? Access to the outer hull, he said simply. And a suit. The hull, she repeated. You'll be exposed to vacuum. My world's storms were worse, he said. Before she could argue, he was already walking toward the airlock. The crew followed, whispering among themselves. The Cthal guard muttered, he's insane. The engineer replied, or he's the only one who isn't. Inside the airlock, the human moved with calm precision. He checked the seals, the tether line, the small pack of explosives strapped to his waist. You plan to fight that thing with bombs? The captain asked over comms. Not bombs, he said. Bait. The airlock hissed. The door opened, revealing the endless black. Without hesitation, the human stepped out. No one breathed. Through the cameras, they watched him drift into the void. His suit lights flickered faintly as he moved across the hull like a ghost. The Star-Eater loomed ahead, a moving wall of darkness. Its red veins glowed brighter as it sensed motion. It sees you, whispered the captain. Good, he said. He pulled a small device from his belt and pressed it against the metal hull. A pulse of energy rippled outward. The creature shifted, curious. Come closer, the human murmured. The creature's massive tendrils reached out, brushing the hull. The ship shuddered. He's too close, shouted the engineer. Pull him in. No, the captain said. Wait. The creature pressed against the bait device, and then the human triggered it. A blinding flash lit the void. The Star-Eater recoiled, its body twisting violently. The blast did not destroy it, but it screamed, a sound that made the hull vibrate and every passenger clutch their ears. He did it, shouted someone. He hurt it. But when the light faded, the cameras went dark. Static filled the screens. "Where is he?" the captain demanded. No one answered. Only the sound of static filled the bridge. "Find him!" she shouted. The comms crackled, faintly. Then a voice, calm, steady. "Still here," the human said. "It's not dead." Relief washed over the crew. "Get back inside," Rain said. "Now." "No," he replied. "It's learning. It knows what hurt it. Next time, it'll come straight for you." "What are you going to do?" she asked. His voice was quiet, almost sad. "End what I started." Then the line went silent. Outside, in the endless dark, the human floated toward the wounded monster, vanishing into the shadow of its vast body. The ship's sensors blinked, one by one, until only static remained. On the bridge, Captain Rain stared at the dead screen and whispered, "May the stars protect you, Deathworlder." But no one answered. Only the slow, distant pulse of the Star Eater filled the void. Hours passed, and the ardent star drifted in silence. The crew worked to restore partial power, speaking in low voices, their eyes often glancing toward the dark window where the creature had vanished. The scanners showed nothing now, no movement, no energy drain, no sign of life. But fear remained, heavy and silent. Some whispered that the human was dead, swallowed by the creature. Others said he had become part of it. Captain Rain sat alone on the bridge, staring into the void. The human's last words echoed in her mind. "End what I started." She didn't know if he had succeeded or if they were next. Then, without warning, the lights flickered. A weak signal appeared on the comms. "Captain," said the officer, eyes wide. "We're getting an external transmission, human frequency." Rain stood instantly. "Put it through." Static hissed, then a voice, low and calm. "Permission to come aboard." The bridge went silent. For a moment, no one moved. "Is that really him?" whispered the navigator. Rain didn't answer. She ran to the viewport and looked out. There, against the endless dark, a figure drifted toward them. His suit was half destroyed, armor scorched, visor cracked, but he was alive. "Open the outer bay," Rain ordered. "Now." The crew rushed to follow her command. The airlock cycled open, and a moment later, the human stepped inside. Steam hissed around him as the door sealed. He removed his helmet slowly, his face burned and bruised but expression calm. His eyes glowed faintly in the red emergency light. The guards aimed their weapons without thinking. The human looked at them, then at Rain, and said simply, "It's not dead." Everyone froze. "What do you mean?" she asked carefully. "You hurt it. You made it run." "It didn't run," he said. "It went to heal. And when it does, it'll come back stronger." He walked past them toward the observation deck. The guards looked to the captain for orders, but she only followed him, unable to stop herself. When he reached the window, he placed his hand on the glass, staring out at the stars. "You think space is quiet," he said softly. "It isn't. It's full of teeth." Rain stood beside him. "You went out there alone," she said. "No one could have survived that." "On my world," he replied, "we learned early that surviving doesn't mean living. It just means not dying yet." He turned toward her, his voice steady but heavy. "You saw the creature, didn't you? The way it moved, the way it changed shape." "Yes," she said. "It was unnatural." "It adapts," he said. "Just like us. It feeds on what it touches. Energy, matter, even thought. It's older than your people, older than mine. It remembers us." Rain frowned. "Remembers?" He nodded. "The first humans it met tried to destroy it. It learned from them. That's why it followed your ship. It sensed me." The captain took a slow breath. "You said it's healing. How long until it returns?" "Not long," he said. "A few hours, maybe less." Around them, whispers spread through the ship. Some crew members wanted to flee, to abandon course and escape through the nearest worm gate. Others wanted to eject the human, believing he was cursed. When Rain entered the mess hall later, arguments broke out. "He's the reason it came," shouted one of the engineers. "We should throw him out before it comes back." Another shouted, "He saved us. You'd be dead if not for him." The tension grew until Rain slammed her hand on the table. "Enough. He's under my protection. No one touches him." The room fell silent, but the fear did not fade. That night, Rain found the human sitting alone in the observation deck again. He sat with his hands folded, staring at nothing. "They're afraid of you," she said quietly. "They should be," he replied without looking up. "Not because of what I am, but because they don't understand it. Fear keeps them alive." She hesitated. "What are you really, human?" He turned his head slowly. "A survivor," he said again, but this time, there was something darker in his tone. "You call my planet Deathworld, but that's not the truth. The truth is, it was life that tried to kill us, and we learned to kill it first. We became what our world needed, something that endures, something that fights back." Rain stared at him, her mind filled with a quiet dread. "So you think you can fight this thing again?" "I have to," he said. "It's not just hunting you. It's following me. I've seen its kind before. They don't stop until they've taken what they want." "And what does it want?" she asked. His voice dropped to a whisper. "The same thing all predators want, to see if it's stronger." Before she could answer, alarms erupted through the ship. The floor trembled. The lights flashed red. "Captain!" shouted the comm officer over the speakers. "It's back. The creature has reappeared on sensors. It's bigger than before." Rain turned to the window. Outside, the stars were vanishing one by one behind a wall of moving shadow. The Star Eater had returned, its body glowing brighter, its tendrils stretching toward the ship like claws. The crew ran to their stations, shouting orders. "Shields up! All power to engines!" But the human stood still, his eyes fixed on the growing darkness. "It's learning," he said quietly. "It knows our tricks now." Rain grabbed his arm. "Then what do we do?" He looked at her calmly, as the ship shook under the pressure of the monster's approach. "We stop running," he said. "And we teach it to fear." Outside, the creature roared, a deep, soundless vibration that shook every bone on the ship. The human stepped forward, eyes glowing in the dark, ready for the fight that even the stars seemed afraid to watch. The ardent star groaned under the weight of the darkness pressing against it. The Star Eater had returned, and this time it was no longer just a shadow in the distance. It was alive and furious. The creature's vast body wrapped around the ship, its glowing veins pulsing with red energy as it drained the last of the ship's strength. Lights exploded along the corridors, sparks rained down, and the sound of tearing metal filled every deck. The crew ran in panic while alarms screamed across the bridge. "We're losing power fast," shouted the engineer. "Shields at 12%. The captain's voice was sharp but trembling. "Divert all power to the core. Keep us from collapsing." The ship shuddered again, and a deep, echoing sound rolled through the hull like a heartbeat. It was the creature's pulse, vibrating through space itself. The human stood at the center of the bridge, his face lit by the red glow of warning lights. His eyes were calm, his voice steady. "It's angry," he said. "You hurt it before. Now it wants revenge. Then how do we stop it?" Rain demanded. "You said you could make it fear us." He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Then we give it something to fear." Without waiting for her reply, he moved toward the exit. "Where are you going?" she called. "Engineering," he said. "I need access to the reactor." "That's suicide," she shouted, but he was already gone. The corridors were chaos, steam hissing, pipes bursting, crew shouting orders. The human walked through it all, untouched by the panic. When he reached engineering, the crew there stared at him with wide eyes. "We can't hold the reactor," one cried. "It's going to breach." "Good. the human said. That's what I need. He began pulling off panels, moving with impossible speed and focus. What are you doing? Asked the chief engineer. Turning your reactor into a weapon. You can't detonate it, the engineer yelled. We'll all die. The human looked up, his eyes cold and steady. If we don't, the whole galaxy will. He connected cables, rerouted power, and adjusted settings no one else dared touch. His hands bled from heat and metal edges, but he didn't slow down. You're mad, the engineer said quietly. Maybe, the human replied. But madness is how my kind survives. On the bridge, Rain watched the sensors. The creature was crushing the ship slowly, savoring its prey. Captain! The navigator shouted. Hull integrity dropping fast. Rain clenched her jaw. Find the human. I need to know what he's doing. Already on it, said the comm officer. Then his eyes widened. He's overloading the core. He's what? She shouted. Before anyone could react, the human's voice came over the comm, calm and controlled. Captain, listen carefully. When I say, now, you cut all external power. Every light, every system, everything. Understand. What are you planning? She asked. To teach it what pain feels like. You'll kill us all, she protested. No, he said. I'll save you. But it'll cost me. His voice faded as the ship shook again. The creature's tendrils broke through an outer hull section, tearing metal apart like paper. Crew members screamed as emergency doors sealed the corridors. It's inside the hull, shouted a guard. Rain slammed her fist on the console. We're running out of time. Then the human's voice returned. Captain, it's ready. Do it now. But, now, he barked. Rain took a deep breath and gave the order. Power down. The ship went dark. Every light, every hum, every sound stopped. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then, from deep within engineering, a blinding flash burst outward. The human had triggered the reactor pulse. The explosion didn't destroy the ship, it expanded like a wave, surging through the hull and into the creature that surrounded it. The Star Eater screamed, a horrible sound that made the walls shake and the stars themselves flicker. Its red veins burned white, its tendrils twisting wildly. The creature released the ship, writhing in agony. On the bridge, Rain and her crew held on as the ship spun out of control. Stabilize us, she shouted. I can't, the navigator cried. Engines offline. Where's the human? She demanded. The comm filled with static, then a weak signal. Still here, he said softly. It's hurt, but not dead. You can't fight it again. Rain shouted. Get back to the bridge. I'm not finished, he said. You said you wanted it to fear you, she said. It will, if you live. There was silence for a long moment. Then his voice came again, calm and low. You don't understand. Fear doesn't stop a predator. Death does. Before Rain could reply, the sensors flashed. Captain! The officer shouted. Something ahead, large mass detected. Rain looked up. The explosion had thrown them into a new sector of the nebula, and floating there in the mist was something massive, an ancient ship, half buried in dust and debris. It's a derelict, the comm officer said. No identification. The human's voice came again, quiet and grim. I know that ship. What is it? Rain asked. It's human, he said. The bridge fell silent. That can't be, Rain whispered. Humans never explored this far. No, he said. But they tried. The derelict loomed closer, its hull marked with faded human symbols, its lights long dead. That's where it began, the human said. The creature. The experiments. The reason it hunts us. The ship trembled as the Star Eater's energy signature appeared again behind them, still alive, still coming. We're caught between it and that wreck. Rain shouted. What do we do? The human's voice hardened. We go inside, he said. There's something on that ship that can end this. Something we left behind. You mean the humans left it? Yes, he said. And it's time we finish what they started. The bridge fell silent again as the ardent star drifted toward the ancient human derelict, its black hull stretching out like the bones of a dead god. Behind them, the Star Eater followed, roaring through the void. The ardent star moved slowly toward the derelict ship, its engines weak and flickering. The vast wreck floated in silence, half swallowed by the glowing mist of the nebula. Its surface was scarred by time and battle, covered in layers of dust and ancient metal. Strange symbols, almost erased by centuries, lined its hull. The human stood at the viewport, his expression unreadable. It's older than any of you, he said quietly. Built before the Union, before the wars. One of ours. Captain Rain looked at him. You said this is where it began. What happened here? He did not answer immediately. His eyes followed the cracked letters along the derelict's hull, letters that once spelled a name, UHS Prometheus. Finally, he said, a colony ship. One of the first to leave Earth. They called it Project Deathworld. They thought they could create new worlds that would make humans stronger. They were wrong. The bridge fell silent. Rain studied his face. You mean, the Star Eater came from humans? The human nodded slowly. It was a weapon. A creation meant to consume radiation, to survive in voids where life couldn't. But it grew hungry. It didn't stop feeding. It started eating everything, light, energy, and life. The crew exchanged terrified looks. So this thing, Rain said softly, is human-made? Made by desperation, he replied. We wanted to outlast death. Instead, we built it. The ship docked with a deep, echoing clang. The airlock opened, revealing a corridor thick with dust and silence. The walls were covered in rusted panels, strange vines of crystal growth, and dark stains that no one wanted to name. The human stepped forward first, carrying a small light. His boots echoed across the metal floor. Stay close, he said. This place remembers. The crew followed hesitantly. Their lights cut through the shadows, revealing long hallways filled with frozen control consoles and shattered helmets. In one chamber, they found rows of cryopods, cracked, empty, and long dead. Inside some were shapes still recognizable as human, bones turned to dust. Rain's voice trembled. They never made it out. No, he said. They became part of it. As they went deeper, the air grew heavier, thick with static. The ship systems flickered faintly, responding to their presence. Suddenly, a faint blue light came alive on a nearby wall, an old terminal booting up for the first time in centuries. The human approached and wiped the dust away. Lines of ancient text scrolled across the screen, and a distorted voice played from the speakers. Project Deathworld, Log 2312. The biocore is unstable. It feeds beyond parameters. Recommend immediate containment. The voice broke into static, then continued, weaker. Containment failed. It's adapting. It knows we're trying to stop it. It's learning from us. The recording ended. The crew stood frozen. Rain whispered. It was born here. The human nodded. And it remembers us. That's why it followed me. It knows what I am. Then why didn't it kill you? She asked. He looked at her, eyes cold. Because it wants to understand what made me survive when its creators died. They moved onward, deeper into the core chamber. There they found a massive structure, a circular room filled with black tendrils that pulsed faintly, still alive after centuries. In the center was a glowing sphere of broken machinery, humming weakly. The biocore, he said. This is where it began. The creature's heart. Rain stepped closer, her skin prickling with static. Can we destroy it? Maybe, he said. But if we do, it'll come for us immediately. It's linked to this place. It feels what happens here. The engineer frowned. Then how do we kill something that's connected to the stars? The human looked down at the floor, then back at the glowing sphere. We use its hunger against it. He began pulling wires and connecting small devices from his belt. What are you doing? Rain asked. Setting a trap, he said. This core still holds fragments of its signal. If we amplify it, we can lure the creature back here. You want it to come here? The captain said in disbelief. You'll doom us all. It's already coming, he said. Better we choose where to face it. They watched as he worked, his movements quick and precise. Every few seconds, the lights flickered, and the metal walls groaned as if the ship itself was alive. This ship is waking up, whispered one of the crew. The human didn't look up. Good. It needs to remember what it was made for. When he finished, the glowing sphere pulsed brighter. Once it's close, he said, we'll overload the core and destroy both it and this place. But someone has to stay to trigger it manually. Rain stepped forward. Then we'll do it together. He shook his head. No. You'll take your ship and run. This is our mess to clean up. You mean your mess, she said. Your people made this thing, but it threatens us all now. Yes, he said softly. And that's why I have to finish it. Before she could argue, the ship shuddered violently. The deck lights flashed red. The scanners screamed. It's here, someone shouted. The creature, it's outside. Through the cracked hull, they saw the dark mass forming again, its vast body swirling like a storm, drawn to the energy spike from the core. The human turned toward the captain. Go, he said. Get your people to safety. You'll die, she said. Maybe, he replied. But that's how my kind redeems itself. He placed his hand on the ancient machine. The light pulsed brighter, syncing with his heartbeat. Rain hesitated, then finally nodded. You're a fool, she said quietly. No, he said, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. I'm a human. She turned and ran, shouting orders to her crew as the ardent star undocked. The ship pulled away from the derelict, engines burning weakly. Behind them, the Star Eater's body loomed over the ancient wreck, drawn by the energy within. Inside, the human stood alone, staring at the glowing core. It ends here, he whispered. The tendrils around the chamber began to move, wrapping around the walls, reaching for him. Outside, the ardent star escaped into the mist, its crew watching in silence as the two ancient enemies met once more. The ardent star drifted through the glowing mist of the nebula, its engines struggling as the crew watched the derelict ship grow smaller in the distance. None of them spoke. The silence was heavy, broken only by the hum of damaged systems and the faint heartbeat of the ship's reactor. Captain Rain stood at the viewport, her eyes fixed on the dying light flickering from the old human vessel. He's still in there, she whispered. The engineer shook his head. If that thing's inside with him, he's already gone. Rain turned sharply. You don't know him. You saw what he did. He's not like anyone we've ever met. He's human, the navigator said quietly. They don't die easy. Rain didn't answer. Instead, she watched as the massive silhouette of the Star Eater wrapped itself around the ancient ship. The creature's tendrils pulsed with red energy, twisting and tightening like serpents. The wreck trembled under the pressure, glowing from within as the human's trap began to activate. Inside, the human stood in the chamber of the biocore, his hands pressed against the ancient machine. The tendrils of the creature had already broken through the walls, crawling across the floor toward him. Each one pulsed with the same rhythm as his heartbeat. He could feel it, the connection between them, a thread of shared origin. You remember me, he said softly. The chamber answered with a deep, guttural sound that shook the air. The creature was not just outside, it was inside, within the walls, within the core itself. Its voice came not through sound but through thought, cold and endless. You are mine. You are what remains of me. The human smiled faintly. No. I'm what you failed to become. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, silver device, the trigger he had built from the ardent star's reactor circuits. A single button, blinking with a faint blue light. The creature's tendrils lashed out, slamming into the floor around him. Metal shattered, sparks rained down, but he did not move. "You were born from our fear," he said. "But fear doesn't rule us anymore." The tendrils wrapped around him, cold and pulsing. The creature spoke again, its voice echoing through his mind. "You cannot destroy me. I am beyond death. I am the hunger that endures." "Then I'll starve you," he whispered, pressing the button. Outside, the derelict ship exploded in blinding light. The Ardent Star's crew shielded their eyes as the wave of energy rippled through the nebula. The light swallowed everything, stars, mist, even the darkness itself. For a moment, there was no sound, no color, only silence and radiance. Then the shockwave hit. The Ardent Star was thrown through the void, spinning wildly. Systems failed, alarms screamed, but the ship held together. When the light faded, there was nothing left of the derelict ship. Only drifting debris and fading energy readings. "Is it gone?" the engineer whispered. The sensors officer stared at his display. No life signs. No creature. No trace of him. Rain closed her eyes, her throat tightening. "He did it," she said softly. "He actually did it." For a moment, no one spoke. The crew stood in silence, listening to the faint hum of their wounded ship. Then Rain straightened. "Set a course for the nearest outpost," she ordered. "We'll tell the Union what happened here." "Captain," the navigator said quietly, "what if they don't believe us? A creature like that, a human like him." She turned to face him, her eyes filled with quiet fire. "Then we'll make them believe." The ship slowly turned, its thrusters burning weakly as it left the glowing wreckage behind. But as the nebula faded from view, something strange appeared on the scanners, an energy pulse, faint but familiar. "Captain," the sensor officer said, "there's something out there." "Define something," Rain said sharply. "It's human," he said uncertainly. "It matches his signature." Rain's heart skipped a beat. "That's impossible. The explosion should have vaporized everything." "I'm reading it, Captain. It's faint, but it's there. Coordinates locked." Rain hesitated for only a second. "Turn us around." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. "Captain," the engineer protested, "we barely have enough power to make it home." "If that's just a ghost signal, then we'll find out," she said. "He saved us. I won't leave him behind." The Ardent Star turned back toward the ruins. The debris field glowed faintly, fragments of the derelict drifting through starlight. As they approached, the signal grew stronger. Finally, they saw it, a small life pod, half buried in the wreckage. "There!" Rain shouted. "Lock the tractor beam." The pod was pulled aboard. The crew gathered around as it hissed open. Inside lay the human, unconscious but alive, his body scarred and burned. His breathing was shallow, but steady. Rain knelt beside him, touching his wrist. "He's alive," she whispered. The crew stared in disbelief. "How?" the engineer murmured. "He was at the center of that blast." "He's human," Rain said simply. "They don't die easy." Hours later, as the ship limped through the void, the human awoke in the med bay. His eyes opened slowly, meeting Rain's. "You came back," he said weakly. "You didn't think we'd leave you behind, did you?" she said with a small smile. He tried to sit up but winced. "The creature. Gone," she said. "You did it." He looked out the viewport, where the stars drifted quietly by. "For now," he murmured. "What do you mean?" Rain asked. He turned to her, eyes shadowed but calm. "It wasn't the only one. The Prometheus wasn't the only ship. There were others." Her blood ran cold. "Others?" He nodded. Hundreds of years ago, humanity tried to seed multiple biocores across different sectors. Some failed, some didn't. Rain stood frozen. "You're saying there could be more of those things out there?" "Not could," he said. There are. The silence in the room grew heavy. Then Rain drew a deep breath. Then we stopped them. Together. The human looked at her for a long time, then gave a faint, tired smile. You sound like one of us. Maybe I am now, she said. Outside the viewport, a single faint red spark appeared far off in the dark, small, pulsing, and alive. The human's eyes flicked toward it, his jaw tightening. It's starting again, he whispered. Rain followed his gaze. Then we'll be ready. The ardent star turned slowly toward the spark, its engines glowing against the endless void. The stars watched in silence as the last light of humanity moved forward, ready to face the darkness once more.